Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Mehta. Welcome learners. Before starting our session, I would like to thank UGC Human Resource Development Center of Gujarat University for giving me an opportunity to connect with you and deliver my session on planning your postdoctoral. I also would like to thank Professor Jagdish Joshi, Professor and Director of UGC HRDC of Gujarat University. HRDC of Gujarat University is ranked as 15 in India and number 1 in Gujarat. It is pioneered and created history or benchmark by organizing the first of its kind online refresher course in India in the year 2018 and 19. The first ever online short-term course on e-content developing during lockdown and unlock 1, and many such programs. I really appreciate the team efforts for organizing such programs. Okay, so today's topic is planning your postdoctoral. First, let us understand what we are going to study in today's topic. Number 1 is understanding the postdoctoral. Number 2, rationale, that is what are the reasons why someone should pursue his or her postdoctoral research. Number 3 is talking about the conditions or prerequisites for postdoctoral. Number 4, understanding application procedure for postdoctoral. Number 5, what will be your journey in the postdoctoral? And number 6 is talking about tips and tricks for the postdoctoral from my own experiences. Let us begin with what is postdoctoral. The word itself suggests doctoral, postdoctoral, post PhD, post your doctorate degree. So basically, if you would like to see in one line, it is nothing but a full-time research that someone can pursue. So postdoctoral cannot in like PhD, you can pursue in part-time, but it is always advisable to pursue it full-time. That is where postdoctoral is something which you should pursue always full-time. Then, who is called a postdoctoral scholar? What are the requirements of postdoctoral scholar? Number 1, an individual with PhD degree engaged in full-time research with academic institution. So, as a postdoctoral, there are 3 conditions, basic conditions. Number 1 is individual with PhD degree. Right. So, you must have your PhD degree. Number 2, your readiness should be engaged in full-time research. So, here it is not a part-time. You can do your PhD in part-time, but for postdoctoral, it is always advisable to go for the full-time research. And number 3 is the academic institution. Right? So you should be engaged, you should be accommodated by one academic institution where you can pursue your postdoctoral. So if you look at initially, only science discipline scholars were pursuing their postdoctoral for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. They were supposed to do some experiments in laboratory. They were supposed to build some models. But nowadays, this scenario has changed. Right? Management students, commerce students, humanities, social science students, they are also giving more emphasis to research. And that is why they are also pursuing their postdoctoral. So, these are some basic conditions, right, to someone to be labeled as a postdoctoral scholar or postdoctoral fellow. PhD degree, full-time research and engagement with any kind of institution, academic institution. Let us move forward, right, rationally. And this is very important to understand why someone should pursue or why you should pursue your postdoctoral research. As we all know, that research is the prime requirement in nowadays. To be a good teacher, someone should have the thirst for some good research, eagerness to search certain things. So, the research will always make a teacher a better teacher. That is why the first and foremost thing is scholarly development. Because in postdoctoral, you're going to do it for the full time. You are getting the full time for research, so you can develop your niche area of research. You can become a great scholar in one area. There you can publish research papers on your names. So whenever somebody would type in Google this particular area, so your name should be reflected as a core researcher in that area. So postdoctoral will give that time to you. Number 2 is the career development or career advancement. Right? So, as I said that now the postdoctoral study is not only limited to science discipline. Right now, the commerce, management, social science scholars can also pursue their postdoctoral. This is the added advantage. This is a kind of a value addition in your CV. So if you are just a doctoral and if you are postdoctoral, your chances of selection in the interview are a bit higher because they can see that kind of vigor, enthusiasm for research, and that's why you have pursued this kind of course. So this is always an added advantage for your career advancement. Number 3, as I said, that it is a full-time research. So here, majority of the organization are following the 80-20 ratio. 80% of the time is for research and 20% of time for other teaching and administrative responsibility. So what happened when you get more time for research? You can do that thing very focused and very detailed manner. So you are having less responsibility, other responsibility, and you can do better in-depth research. So that is one of the rationale and one of the reasons why you should pursue if you have the thirst for research, if you want to explore some underdeveloped areas in research. So this is the best time. So you'll get a postdoctoral fellowship or degree and you're getting this. So that is also kind of an addition in your resume. Then there are, number 4 is talking about many researchers they're not affiliated to any institution. They are independently doing some kind of research. So postdoctoral study will help you in becoming independent research scholar. Right? There are many professors that they are not working with any university. They are just working with any kind of research organization, or they are just independently writing research papers, books, and everything. Next is, this is the time that you can sharpen your technical skills. Yes, of course, in PhD, you have read about the methodology and the software and everything. But somewhere that this period will give you the time where you will sharpen all your skills, technical skills and everything. The last thing, right? Because you are getting a long time for research. So you can focus, you can make a niche area of yours. Right? Being a researcher, if you will work with a very good institution, they want that what is your research area. So if, for example, I am from HRM and OB, I cannot say HRM and OB is my research area. My research area can be the psychological contract. My research area can be the well-being. My research area can be the occupational stress. So your research area, you want to focus on one niche area, and this is the time where you can develop your niche area, publish in this domain, and become a core researcher in this domain. So postdoctoral research of 2, 3, 5, it depends on the institution, the duration, but you can also do and focus one research interest, develop those research areas. So this was all about the rationale for postdoctoral research. Now moving forward to the prerequisites of postdoctoral. What are the basic conditions to pursue the postdoctoral? Why someone should pursue, and if you want to pursue to understand the fundamentals of it, let us understand it one by one. As I have already explained, an educational requirement, that is, you must have your PhD degree in your hand. Right? So PhD degree, during PhD what you will learn? During PhD you will learn the industry fundamentals. During PhD, you will learn in that industry whatever your research topic. For that research topic, the methodology. For that research topic, the data analysis, whether qualitative or quantitative. For that particular industry, for your research topic, what are the findings and conclusions? This is something that you have learned in your PhD, right? So now this is something that you are having those fundamentals. Now how can you raise those bars? So that is why the basic requirement is completion of PhD. As we all know that it is mandatory to become a teacher in the university setup or higher education, PhD is mandatory. In PhD, right, you must have some publications. So this is the basic requirement for applying for the postdoctoral. Number 2 is age. Now, age that depends on the institution or funding agency through which you are pursuing your postdoctoral. For example, there is a funding agency called Icssm, Indian Council of Social Science Research. They have defined the upper limit is 45. And there is another institution is IIM Kolkata. They have defined the upper age limit is 35 years. And you can get relaxation if you are coming from the reserved category or if you are a women candidate. Number 3 is Iit Bombay. They are also giving postdoctoral in management as well as they are also giving in engineering background. They are saying that we want maximum 32 years people can apply for this, but this is a very preferable. So they are not very rigid in terms of that. If somebody is having a proven great track record of research and teaching, so they can consider that person, but the preferable is below 32 years. Now UGC, right, they are saying that University Grant Commission is also offering many postdoctoral fellowship for SC/ST students, for women candidates. They have said that maximum 55 years is the age for postdoctoral. So it depends on institution, it depends on the funding agency through which you are pursuing your postdoctoral. Number 3 is experience of publication. See, the condition number 1 and condition number 3, they are always related. During your PhD, also it is mandatory to publish 2 research papers, and now UGC Care, Scopus, APDC, APS, there are many lists, indexes in which you can check and publish your paper. So during PhD, you must have this experience of publication, and that experience will always help you in pursuing your postdoctoral, because the output of postdoctoral should be not only in terms of thesis that you will write, but also in terms of publication, right? How much you're able to publish during that. That is also an added advantage. That is also something that your CV or resume will shine when you have more publication in good journals, in reputed journals. So this is also a kind of requirement. You should have at least 2-3 research papers before you're applying for postdoctoral. The next is support from mentor, guide, or supervisor. See, if you want to pursue a postdoctoral, right, first of all you have to find a mentor or guide under whom you can pursue a postdoctoral. Right? That person will give you the guidance, that person will give you the support, that person will always extend his or her hand for help, advice, assistance, everything. Right? But you should get. So first what you need to do is a person, your guide or your prospective guide should have a confidence in you. You should have that kind of record. The person can have the confidence in you. Then and then only you can get support from your mentor, guide, or supervisor. If that person would say yes to you, then and then you can apply to that institute, apply through the funding agency. So this person is always important. Your guide or supervisor is always important in your postdoctoral journey. Next is the support from host institution. Before understanding what is support from host institution, let us first understand what is host institution. So there are, in postdoctoral, either the institution will directly accommodate you as a postdoctoral, or there is a body, agency like UGC, ICSSR, CSIR, they will announce on their website that we are going to offer postdoctoral, but you have to affiliate to some institution. For example, let's say UGC has announced that we are going to give postdoctoral fellowship to the candidate, right? But you have to have affiliate in institution. So first, what you need to do, the government universities, right? There are certain universities, deemed universities, government universities, public funded universities, right? You need to contact this university and one department in that university. Then you have to meet a person that I am interested in doing postdoctoral. I wanted to pursue my postdoctoral. Will you accommodate me? Right? Then you have to give your CV, you have to meet the prospective guide or supervisor. Right? Another thing is your research area and that guide's research area should match. That person, your guide, prospective guide, should show some kind of interest in your research. And if that person will say yes to you, right, then that person, the prospective guide, will talk to the upper authority, maybe registrar and vice chancellor. Right? So here in this case, right, for example, BK. So BK is a affiliating institution. You are getting fellowship through UGC. I hope I have clarified what is most. So like IIMs, you can directly do that. They can directly give you accommodation and accommodate you as a postdoctoral scholar. But when this kind of agency, UGC, ICSSR, when these people will announce the postdoctoral fellowship, you have to go to one institute that they will say accommodate you. That is accommodating, and they will provide you some facility. So this is the difference between post institution and affiliating institution. Let us go to this. Number 5 is support from host institution. Right? You should get support not only in terms of the facility, the infrastructure, but in terms of the staff, in terms of whatever the research and the work that they are going to assign to you. Right? Because I said that it is 80-20 ratio. So 20% you're going to get some kind of work from the institution itself. The next is the readiness for full-time research. Say that it is a full-time work. So you are not allowed to do any kind of job. There should not be any other income rather than the stipend that they are going to give you. Right? So your readiness should be there. Then you should not say, no, I'm not. Because many times what happened, that in this public funded postdoctoral fellowship, your stipend may come a little late. Maybe you are going to get a stipend of 6 months together. So for those time of 6 months, you're not having any kind of money because you're not allowed to do a job, right? So you should have patience and your mental readiness should be there. Okay, if my salary will not come, my stipend will not come for shorter duration, then I will also survive. You should have that kind of confidence in you, right? Because many times what happened, that I have seen many scholars, they have joined the fellowship and they feel that okay, fellowship is not coming on time, right? So they leave this in between. So what you are doing, you are actually spoiling your career, your time and everything, and also you are also spoiling your time for research, your time for academics, everything is spoiled, right? So don't do that. Have some patience and there should be mental readiness. So if you are studying, right, so you cannot do job. Likewise, if you are doing postdoctoral, you cannot do other job. You are just supposed to do the research. That is something which is always required. Okay, now next is, let us understand the application procedure for postdoctoral. What should be the application procedure for postdoctoral? How someone should apply? What are the fundamentals to understand before applying the postdoctoral? Let us see one by one. Number 1 is clarity. Clarity in terms of 2 things. One is your research title and second is your research objective. So your title should be clear, your title should be short, your title should be able to explain something. You cannot put any abstract thing in title, right? So your research title, you should be clear about your research title, and whatever you are writing is a title, that should also be clear. Number 2 is about research objective. Now, this is something in any research, this is the basic thing, right? In your PhD also, you've gone through this kind of thing, research title and research objective, or research questions, whatever you want to write, right? So objective should be clear, right? Why you are doing this research, which are the aims, what you want to achieve at the end of this research. So this is your research objective, and that has to be clear. If that is not clear, then it will be very difficult for you to defend your proposal of postdoctoral, because they are more and more focusing on the title, objective, and methodology. So you should be very clear what you want to do. So you must have that timeline that in these 2 years I'm going to do it, and these are my objectives, and this is the way I'm going to achieve my objectives. So step number 1 is about clarity. You should be clear. Step number 2, as I have already explained, right, there is the host institution, and second is the affiliating institution. So host institution is nothing but that can directly accommodate you as a postdoctoral, but affiliating institution is that accommodates you and provide you facility for research through some kind of agency. Now, what is the difference here? The difference number 1 is for your affiliating institution, right? So they are not going directly give you stipend. So they will get stipend through UGC. So UGC will deposit that stipend in the account of the registrar of the university or the vice chancellor of the university, or there is separate dedicated account for this postdoctoral, right? And through that account, that amount will be given to you of your stipend. So that is the number 1 difference. Number 2 is they are just accommodates you. You are still a fellow of ICSSR or UGC. You're not a fellow of that university. They are just a supporting institution for you. In case of host institution, they are not only supporting institution, they are the institution who can directly take you as a postdoctoral. So that's the difference you have to understand. Either you can go for an affiliating institution or you can go for the host institution directly. Let us understand some fundamentals of affiliating institution. So, affiliating institution can be the institution of national importance. It should be approved by MHRD, government or research institutes. Public funded Indian university, that also includes deemed university. College that having approved PhD program. Funds that are disbursed through the affiliating or administrative institution. Like I said, that UGC will give money of stipend to a university, and university will give you. That's your funds will not get direct from the UGC in your account, right? So it will come to the affiliating university. What are the rules, different rules for affiliating institution? Rule number 1, it is required to provide the requisite research infrastructure to the scholar and maintain proper accounts. C. In case of affiliating institution, right, the paperwork should be much solid. Excuse me. Okay, number 2 is affiliating institution required to give an undertaking in the prescribed format contained in the application form to administer and manage the fellowship amount. So, as an affiliating institution, you have to give undertaking to the funding agency like UGC, ICSSR, CSIR, all these agencies you have to give the undertaking. Right, so this is also what they are doing. They are going to collect all the proofs that you have accommodated this fellow by maintaining the proper account, by maintaining the register, by maintaining the master, everything. So they may also call upon that whether the person has visited the institute for how many times in a year, right? Because this is a full-time course, so every day you have to go there. Again, affiliating institution should have a different separate dedicated bank account for grant. So their funding agency will grant to you grant to the affiliating institution, and the affiliating institution in return will disperse those things. Another thing is affiliating institution is also responsible for the audited statement of account with utilization certificate, and that certificate should be signed by the competent authority like registrar and vice chancellor or chief financial officer. So their obligation is to disperse and provide you certain funds, right? The stipend, every month you are going to get stipend from the affiliating institution. So they should have the statement of account, audited statement of account, utilization certificate, everything should be signed. You have to send this every 6 months to the body like UGC and Icssm, to whom you are getting the postdoctoral fellow. Then another thing is they are also supposed to make some suitable arrangement for preservation of data such as field-in schedule, tabulation, sheets, manuscripts, report, etc. So what a scholar is also always a part of this affiliating institution. Scholar every day need to go to the affiliating institution. The scholar is also a kind of a employee of that affiliating institution. They have to follow all the rules and regulations. So schedule that when the person is coming every day or not. But nowadays you can also see that this university is having also cameras. So if you're not maintaining that register, right, that means that they can also call upon the recordings and whether they want to see that whether the person has entered in the organization or not. And if the person has entered, then for how many hours that person has stayed with the organization. Schedule, tabulation, sheets, so you have signed in so many things. Even your affiliating institution will always give you a kind of different task of administration and everything, right? So for that your signs are required. Whenever you are publishing any research paper, right, one copy should go to affiliating institution, so they should also have that record. They should also have the different reports, because every 6 months, right, or maybe the quarterly, so they have the manual, right? So maybe they can call upon the 2 times in a year, or maybe a quarterly, that you have to submit your progress report, right, related to your study. So everything. So what I advise to the scholar is you have to make 3 copies of everything. One, you are going to submit to your UGC, Icssm, whosoever is your funding agency. Second, to your institution, and third, for yourself. Right? Maintain these 3 different files, right, and keep everything in those, whatever you are having. Right? Even if you participate in conference and you have one copy of certificate that is the original one, keep it to photocopy in this too. So that will always help you, right? So you should have your record very clear, right? Your document should be very clear. Number 3 here is the ICSSR and UGC reserve right to demand raw data. Any raw data if you are having, for example, questionnaire, right? So you have to submit the copy of it to the affiliating institution that you are doing or you are conducting a survey on this, and these are the questionnaire. Or you can submit if you collect online data, so online sheet that you are getting, you can submit it to the institution. So ICSSR, UGC, they have right to reserve to demand this kind of raw data. If, for example, during your postdoctoral journey, if you have been to the different places for data collection, right, so you should have that record, where you have gone, how you have gone. Right? This record is also with the affiliating institution, and you have to give this record to the funding agency. So they demand anything at any point of time which you claim, right? So you must have those things with you. Step number 3 is contact your guide or supervisor, and you have to build rapport with your prospective guide. Right? So for example, first, for that, what should be there in your mind? The clarity of your research. You want to do research on which topic? Okay, I want to do research on well-being of employees. Right? Now then I will see, right, who is the researcher who is doing research on well-being. And then I get to know that someone from Gujarat University is having a keen interest in the research on well-being. So what I will do, I will contact that person Now that person should have the associate professor and professor level in the academics, right? I will contact that person and I will understand, okay sir, madam, I'm interested in doing my postdoctoral. I'm also interested in doing my research in this area. So are you ready to accommodate me? So that person will not directly say yes to you, of course, right? So that person always require that what is your readiness as a scholar? Will you be able to do this thing for 2 years? If somebody say yes, right? So they can always give you some kind of task that okay, you do this thing, then I will let you know whether I can accommodate you as a scholar or not, right? So what you need to do, you have to build a rapport with your prospective guide. You ask them, right? Okay, if nothing will work out, you can always tell that person that I want to write research paper with you. That can also and always be helpful to you, right? So you have to contact your guide and supervisor prior and define the institution. What is your research topic? Because guide is the person who is the mediator between you and the institution and funding agency everywhere, right? So his or her support is really important, right? And he or she must have confidence in you that as a scholar you will do some wonderful research work. So this is some kind of a rapport building you should be having with your guide prior in inviting yourself as a postdoctoral to that university. The next is prepare the proposal. Now we all know that even in your PhD you must have defended your proposal, right? But what are the different some key points over here I would like to say, right, which is somewhere differentiating than your PhD proposal. So I have read guidelines for many postdoctoral studies, many postdoctoral online applications, that what should exactly they are looking at that proposal, right? Because proposal is the first thing. If they are convinced with your proposal, then they are going to invite you. So what should you write in that? The number one is the title of the research proposal. Title should be clear, it should be meaningful, and confirm the topic reflecting the scope of the study. For example, I would like to study the well-being of IT employees and its impact on the intention to stay with the organization, right? And then I will say of Gujarat. So what my title is clear. I want to study well-being and its impact on intention to stay, right? So it is clear and it is meaningful. Then I am confirming my topic reflecting the scope of the study. So scope is two here. One is the IT employees, that is information technology employees. And second is I want to study the geographic area, that is Gujarat only. So what am I trying to say here is your research proposal should have clear, meaningful and confirmed topic reflecting the scope of the study. Number two is abstract of the proposal. Now what should be there in abstract? So there are two types of abstract actually. One is the structured abstract and second is the unstructured abstract. Usually in proposal one should always go for the unstructured abstract. But unstructured abstract should also have all the elements of structured abstract. What should be there in structured abstract? First, your objective of research. Second, the methodology. Third is your finding. Fourth is the contribution. And fifth is the originality of your research. Now this they have given this 5 blocks and you have to write this thing in those blocks. That is a structured way of writing it. But in unstructured, you can write in paragraph, but the pattern should be the same, right? Your research abstract should always start with the aims and objectives. What is the aim of the study, right? What is the methodology that you are going to have for the study, right? And what are the findings, proposed findings, right? And how your research will contribute in the theory and practice. And last is what is the originality of your research. Approximately 200 to 250 words you can write for that. Next is the introduction. Okay, people are always confused in proposal what they should write in introduction. And they should write about the industry, they should write about the topic, what exactly they should write. Right. So basically, if you are doing research in one industry, right, so introduction will always a generic one which start with the industry, and then slowly and gradually you will move to the variables. Then you can move to the theory, and then you can say that okay, in this area, this kind of a novel research I'm going to do. So this is called a funnel approach, where you're starting with the general and then you become specific to your research domain. This is how you should write the introduction. Over here, I've also said that it clearly states the research problem. So when you are explaining your industry and your respondents and the variables, somewhere you're explaining what is the problem, what is the research problem, why this particular research is needed, why you are going to do, what is the benefit of this research in theory and in practice, what are the different theoretical backgrounds that you're going to use. So this is something that is related to your introduction. Number 4 is talking about the major research works reviewed or the literature review, right? So at least if I am doing some kind of research, for example, my research area is psychological contract. I am working in this area since last 3.5 years, right? So I should know that in my research area, who are the pioneer researchers right now who are doing the research in this area. Second thing is whether in India, how many researchers are doing the research in this area. Internationally, how many researchers are doing research in this area. So at least at the time of proposal, right, you should review at least 15 to 20 very significant, impactful articles, research papers proposed to your research. This will give you the kind of feeling that, okay, this work has already been done by previous researchers. What you can do more, right? How you can do and you can work further. So you can identify the gaps, right? And that is where we are on the next topic of identification of gap, right? How you can identify the gap. And without knowing the previous research, can you identify the gap? No, you can never identify the gap, right? You must have gone through the previous research, major findings, right? Whosoever is working in that area, then you can come up that okay, this is something that has already been done. Well, many times what people are doing that okay, this kind of research is done in US, but that is not done in India. That is not something called gap, right? Gap is something where you are adding certain things which has not been done earlier or in the context of your research, right? So including the researcher's own work area. Existing empirical findings may also be discussed. Overview should clearly demonstrate the inadequacies or gaps in the existing findings or approaches and its relevance. For example, I would like to give one example over here, right? So I am working on the psychological contract area. So when I started working, then I've seen that there are many professors, there are many researchers like Professor Denise Rosu. She is with Carnegie Mellon University. She is working in this area since 1989. So you can imagine since how many years she is working in this area. And she is one of the topmost researcher in psychological contract. So what she has done, she has studied psychological contract of different level employees of different industries, how that has an impact on engagement, commitment, and other work outcomes and everything. Now what she's saying that majority of the research is done for the employee side, right? But the employer side is still being ignored. So now the researchers should more focus on the employer side of the psychological contract. So there was a gap in the area. Now, if any researcher would like to go further, right, they can work on this gap and they can bridge the gap of psychological contract of employer and employee both. Next is the objective of the study, right? So objective, it should explain why you are doing this research, what are the specific objectives. You should clearly state And when you can write the clear objectives, when you yourself is clear with your research, otherwise you can never go and you can never explain someone what are the objectives of your study. Next is the research questions or hypothesis, right? So given the conceptual framework and the specification of dimension, the specific questions to be answered to the proposed research should be sharply formulated. Here they are saying that you should sharply formulate your research questions or hypothesis. If it is a qualitative research, people are more focusing on research question. If it is a quantitative research, you must need to formulate a different hypothesis and you can do your research. But you should be at the end of your research journey, you should be able to answer your research questions. Then and there it is worth making. Right? So in case of explanatory research design, a specification of variables and position of relationship among them to specific hypothesis must be given. Right? So you should posit that, okay, this is my quantitative study. I want to study the relationship among these two variables. Let's say, for example, you want to understand the relationship between occupational stress and emotional intelligence. If you want to understand these two things, right, so you might have certain variables. Right? Let's say you're saying that I want to understand the occupational stress and emotional intelligence relationship among the different age groups or occupational or gender. Right? So your hypotheses are clear. You want to understand this relationship from the demographic lens. So this thing should be very clear at the beginning. Then framework and methods proposed for research. Right? So what you should do in detail, the scope and coverage of your study. That is, what should be the scope? Like I explained in title, right? IT employees and Gujarat state is my scope and coverage. Then approach and methodology with adequate justification to conduct research. They also understand then want you to explain the methodology that you are going to do. So the methodology part will always include your research design, whether it is a description or cross-sectional design or a longitudinal design, or you want to go for the experimental research, what you want to do, right? And how you are going to collect the data. They want to understand. So this is something that prior, when you're applying, this thing should be there in your mind, right? And how you're going to collect the data, what kind of methods that you're going to use, whether it's an online, offline method, whether one-to-one or one-to-many. Then you should always explain how you are going to achieve the hypothesis, right? So there are different tests like t-test, chi-square, independent t-test, paired sample t-test. There are so many tests, right? Through SPSS, through model building of almost what you want to do exactly. So you can explain that framework and methods. Right? This is one of the very important area in your research proposal, and majority of the people are going to get question from this area only. Then another thing is, when you are doing your postdoctoral, it is always expected from you that you should do some kind of path breaking or innovative research. Right? You should come up with some novel concept and you study those things extensively. Because something which is already done in your area of research, there is no need to do that. It will complete a waste of time if you are doing those things. So they always want, what is the new thing about your research? What is the novelty of your research? So that is number 9, that you should be coming up with those kind of things which has not been done earlier by the researchers, right? And you should always explain what is the proposed outcomes of the study, right? So how you can do this? You can explain that, okay, this is my proposed outcome, right? So at the end of the research, I'm going to tell, or I'm going to prove that, okay, this is something that is there in my objective and I'm going to prove my objective, right? And you also explain the proposed outputs from the study in terms of the publication, that where you can publish, right? So which are the different journals that that are your target journals for the publication. That can be UGC careless journals, that can be books, that can be monographs, that can be the Scopus index journals, ABDC index journals, whatever. Right? So all these things are the proposed outcome of your study. The next is how your research will contribute. So in postdoctoral, right, their main focus is one is on methodology, and second is how your research will contribute in policy making and contribution to the society. So your research should always contribute in policy making, because at postdoctoral level it is expected from you that whatever research that you are going to do, it has some policy making implications, right? So maybe from the extension of your theory, maybe from the methodology that you are using, that will always help them in policy making. Number two is the relevance of proposed study for society, right? Because you are using the resources of society. There should be some kind of significant contribution of your research to the society. Society should also get some kind of benefit from your research, because you're using the resources of society. You are doing the research in society with the usage of the resources of society. So there is always a kind of a note of how you can contribute to society with the help of your research. So this is something very important and very fundamental. Step number 5, right? Now, step number 5 is talking about that, okay, now you all know of the affiliating institution, what should be the proposal, right? Then you will check the website of the institution or affiliating institution or the host institution, right? You have to check the website, because they are going to announce the postdoctoral announcement and fellowship announcement through the website only. Right? So you need to list down, okay, this many organizations are going to announce the postdoctoral fellowship. So you regularly need to visit the website and check the website, because the applications are always invited through the open advertisement of the website, right? And my advice to everyone is you need to read all the minute to minute instructions, and then you should apply. And minute details, right? Any small instruction should not be left. You should go and read and reread those minute instructions. Then if you apply, right, through online you apply, and then you have to wait for their intimation, wait for their email. If you are selected, they will intimate you, right? And if I talk about the host institution, like IIM Kolkata, Iit Bombay. Even if you are not selected, they will intimate you that you are not selected this time. Right? You can apply next time, or we are very sorry and unfortunate to let you know that you are not selected this time. So what happened is, but if you cannot expect this thing in case of UGC, Icssm are like funding body like that, because from India, thousands of people are applying for the postdoctoral. So that is not possible for them to deny, right? If you will not receive any kind of communication in next 6 months, so you have to understand that your application is not selected, or if that is out of screening. You should have some kind of patience. Number 7, let's say if you are shortlisted, right? So they will invite you for the interaction or presentation before an expert committee. So whatever the explanation I have given before, right, for proposal and for everything, now that explanation would be the worthwhile, because now you're selected. So you have to interact, you have to go there, wherever the place is, you have to go there, explain your proposal, present your proposal, and you have to convince the expert. If your interaction was very good, expert committee is giving the recommendation, right, then they will award you the fellowship. If they are not happy or they are not convinced with your proposal, then they will deny, right? But don't lose hope. This is something which is a part and parcel, right? Every time, everyone cannot be selected everywhere. So don't lose hope. Apply to the other institution or this institution to the very next step, right? So don't lose hope if you're not selected. Now the next thing, very important thing, right? What should be there in the journey of postdoctoral? If now you're selected, for example, you are selected, right? You're supposed to join the institution. Now what should be there? Right? From my experience, I would like to say this. First and foremost thing, as you all know, it is a full-time research. So they will issue one sanction letter that you are selected and you have to join this particular fellowship during this particular time. So whatever the specified and stipulated guideline and timeline that they have given, right, you have to join that institution, right, by submitting all the required documents through the affiliating or administrative institution, right? Whatever timeline that they have given, join it before the timeline, right? So that is the first step. Join it with all the required documents of the affiliating and administrative institution. Second thing is, in any institution, they will not give you the postdoc for 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year, 5 year. They will not commit this thing. What they will do, they will give you the postdoc position sanction initially only for 1 year. Right? They would like to see what is your progress report in 1 year. Right? In 1 year, if you are quarterly submitting those things, right, or maybe biannually submitting those, they would like to check your progress, whether this person is worth giving the second year postdoc position or not, right? Second thing, your renewal of the second year or third year is always dependent on the annual progress and statement of account, because like UGC, Icssm, they will give money to the institution will give money to you, right? So what happened is your annual progress report, statement of account, everything of the first year's fellowship, they are going to give you the second year fellowship, right? Or even the third year fellowship. If we talk about the directly, if you're a part of like Iit Bombay, IIM Kolkata, right? IIM Ranchi, IIM Amritsar, these are all directly accommodating you as a postdoctoral fellow. So what happened is, if you are a postdoctoral fellow of direct, so they will also check, they will see your progress in this year in terms of publication, in terms of your focus in research, right? So you can never get the fellowship of entire period of 2, 3, 5 years, but for initially you will always be given the of 1 year, and after they'll check whether the person is worth giving the second year's fellowship, then they will give that to you. Then a scholar is supposed to submit quarterly or 6 monthly progress report, right? Like initially, I've also given you advice. So when you are making the progress report, right, make a 3 copy. First is for yourself, second is for your institution, and third is for your supervisor. Right? Give this 3 copy and submit it. And every progress report should have the signature of you, your guide, institution's head of the director or head of the institution, and also the staff of the institution, right? This is something that you must have. Without that, nobody is going to accept. Without that, then what is the guarantee and what is the proof that this document is coming from this institution only? So you should always, whether they have written it or not, you should have the stamp and signature of head of the department. Then, apart from the research activity, of course, that administrative and teaching activity will be given by the institution. You have to perform that, because postdoctoral position somewhere is a non-teaching research position, right? And when you are getting a non-teaching research position, right, they will give you some kind of administrative work, right? So I said the 80-20 ratio, 80% of time for research, 20% of time for other activity. Very important thing now is you must publish good research papers in the reputed journals like UGC, Scopus, ABDC, CABS, FT50. And you should always aim the reputed and high rank journals. Your aim should always high. When you aim high, then you can achieve high. If you not aim high, then you can never achieve those things. right? So as a scholar, you must publish your research papers in this kind of journals, where, because this is your output of your research, this is the output of the 2 years that you are doing the research, or 3 years, 5 years, whatever time duration that it is there, right? But that is the output of your research, and if it is published in very good journals, that means it is approved. It is a kind of a stamp that whatever research that you are doing is an excellent research. Another thing is, during your journey of postdoctoral, right, a scholar should always and always participate in the different conferences to gain better insight, right? So you should always gain some better insight, and you should always participate in conferences. See, there are certain reasons why people are participating in conference. The reason number one, we all know that people would like to participate because of networking, right? So networking in the sense that your research area and someone else's research area, if that will match, so we'll always understand, right, that you can always make that person a co-author. You can both write the good research paper. Second is, at the end of scholar are supposed to prepare book length report and submit it to the institution. So your research paper and thesis, and book length report is nothing but the thesis. These are the two prime requirements. You should be ready for this. And many people, they are always tired when they are writing a PhD thesis. So in postdoc also, you're supposed to write thesis, right? So if you're tired of writing the thesis, then it will be very difficult for you, right? So in postdoctoral also, you are also preparing the book length report. You are also submitting the research paper, and you have to submit to the institution. There is requirement. You have to follow this requirement. Okay. Understanding the journey, what should you do in that particular journey, right? Let us understand how many postdoctoral fellowships are there in India. Which are the institutions that are providing postdoctoral fellowship in India? Okay, this is a list of institutions that are providing postdoctoral fellowship in India. First is CSIR Nehru Science Postdoctoral Fellowship. Number 2, National Postdoctoral Fellowship. Number 3, UGC Postdoctoral Fellowship to Women Candidates. Number 4, Postdoctoral Fellowship to SC/ST candidates. Number 5, Fulbright Nehru Postdoctoral Fellowship for Indian citizens. Number 6, Sir Ratan Tata Postdoctoral Fellowship. Number 7, ICSSR Postdoctoral Fellowship. Dr. D.S. Kothari Postdoctoral Fellowship in India. And last is Dr. S. Radhakrishnan Postdoctoral Fellowship in Humanities and Social Sciences, including languages. Let us see one by one. Let us see their funding agency. Let us see their duration. Let us see some requirement. So this particular section of this session will give you some better insights about the postdoctoral fellowship, different postdoctoral fellowship in India. Number 1 is the CSIR Nehru Science Postdoctoral Fellowship. Right? So here the funding agency is a Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR. Right? Basically, what are the subject areas? That is the basic science, engineering, medicine and agriculture. These are the basic subject areas in which they are going to provide you the postdoctoral fellowship. What is the eligibility? So PhD obtained within the last 3 years or about to submit PhD thesis. Right? So if you are PhD, let's say in 2015, that if you have gained your PhD in 2015, then you're not eligible for this fellowship. So your PhD degree must be within the last 3 years only. What is the maximum age limit? 32 plus 37. So you are getting the 5 years of relaxation for the physically handicapped, SC/ST or women candidate. Otherwise, 32. Then what is the fellowship amount? Right, so 65,000 per month you're getting a fellowship plus HRA as per norms, whatever the norms are there. So duration is 2 years plus 1 year is extendable if, but this extension requires some kind of documentation. So who can apply? Indian nationals, overseas citizens of India and persons of Indian origin or foreign nationals. Foreign nationals they are only accommodating 20%, but Indian nationals, people are from India, origin of India, they are 80%. Right? And there is no specific timeline of date. You can apply any time in a year. So this is a rolling advertisement. Number 2, National Postdoctoral Fellowship. The funding agency is Science and Engineering Research Board India. See, number 1 was also about the science, medicine, engineering. Number 2 is also about the science, medicine, engineering. Right? So, what is the eligibility? PhD, MD, or MS holder or about to submit their PhD, MD, MS thesis, right? PhD in science or engineering, or MD, MS in the degree of medicine. These are the people. Second is they are the applicant. Who can be the applicant? Indian citizen. So same, the maximum age limit is 32 plus 5 years of relaxation for SC, ST, physically handicapped and women candidate. What is the fellowship amount? 55,000 per month or 35,000 per month. Those who submitted thesis but degree yet to be awarded. So 55,000 is for the PhD degree holders and 35,000 is those who are yet to get PhD degree. Duration they are saying in 2 years and application period twice a year. So you have to check their website, right? That twice in a year, but they're not saying the month. So you have to check the website. So you have to see the record of last 3 to 5 years and last 3 to 5 years on which month they have actually announced the postdoctoral fellowship. Then UGC was also giving the postdoctoral fellowship to women candidates. The funding agency is UGC. So here the areas now are getting broader: science, engineering, technology, humanities, and social science. What is the eligibility? Here they have also said and talked about eligibility. So PhD holder plus 55 marks at UG level and 65 marks at PG level. So that is their eligibility. Many of them are also offering that relaxation and also certain things, but eligibility is a minimum requirement. 55% at UG and 60% at PG. If you're coming from the minority SC, ST, OBC section, then 50% and 55% at UG and PG level respectively. Applicant should be Indian citizen, right? Maximum age limit is 55 years. For reserved category for minority, 60 years. Okay? Now, fellowship amount is 38,800 per month, and that is for first 2 years, and then 46,500 per month after 2 years. Right? So here duration is 5 years. Right? So you can have a 5 years duration for this kind of fellowship. You can work extensively, work in the research domain, and you can come up with beautiful outcomes of your research. Application period once in a year. You have to check the UGC website. Next is again UGC is giving fellowship to SC/ST candidate. Right? So this is a very separate category. So this is only so here in this SC/ST women candidate can apply with general section candidate, but here only especially for SC/ST candidate. Right? The rules are exactly the same. They are not different, but they specifically categorized for the SC/ST candidate. So funding agency UGC, science, engineering, technology, humanity, and social science. Right? So PhD holder currently unemployed, and then they are having 50 and 55% at UG, PG level respectively. Maximum age limit is 50 years, but for women candidate, they are getting 5 years of relaxation. Fellowship amount is same as per the women candidate of UGC, 38,800 per month for 2 years and 46,500 per month after 2 years. That's whatever the HRA is for the norms. right? Then you are getting 5 years to complete this, and you have completely check the online website of UGC. Next, very important is Fulbright Nehru Postdoctoral Research Fellowship for Indian citizen. Now, this particular funding agency is United States and India Educational Foundation, USIEF. Subject area, they are having so many broad subject area: science, anthropology, bioengineering, computer science, economics, education policy and planning, energy, history, international law, security, strategic studies, material science, mathematical science, neuroscience, public health, sociology, urban regional planning, and whatnot. Right? They're also giving in the visual arts, women and gender studies. So they have actually broadened the area of the different subject. Then what is the eligibility? PhD degree within the post 4 years. See here, not immediately, but yeah, okay, in past 4 years. So if right now it is 2022, if you have completed your PhD in 2018, 19, 20, 21, that is fine. Then applicant should be Indian citizen. There is no maximum age limit. This is the beauty of this particular fellowship. No maximum age limit, right? And for detailed monthly stipend, you have to check the website. So it has changed every time, because this is the initiative of India and US both. Duration is strictly 2 years, and application period is July to August. Then another fellowship is Ratan Tata Postdoctoral Fellowship. So it is very good news for social science researchers that the subject area is social science, because this is also there, Tata Institute of Social Science, and Ratan Tata Trust is known for its contribution in social science. Eligibility: PhD on social science with a focus on South Asia. So they are actually working, if those researchers which are working upon the economy and society of India and South Asia, right? So they are highly eligible for this kind of fellowship. Applicant should be employed in SAARC region, that is Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. Right? And the host institute is London School of Economics and Political Science. LSE is the host institute where you are going there, you're going to study there. For fellowship amount, right? So you are getting a fellowship amount not in Indian currency, but you are getting a fellowship amount in the currency of the developed nations, UK. Then duration is 6 months. So we are going only get 6 months. You go to London, study there, do your research, come up with the output, and application period is February 12. The next is Icssm, Postdoctoral Fellowship. The funding agency is Indian Council of Social Science Research. The different subject areas, see the subject area is quite broad: management, economics, commerce, sociology, social work, health studies, political science, social psychology, legal, media, library, and whatnot. So many subjects in which they are going to offer a postdoctoral fellowship. The eligibility is the PhD degree in any of the social science discipline. Applicant must be the Indian citizen. Post institute, right? The university and research institutes in India. So, like I said, I have given the definition of affiliating university or institute, right? Any public funded university, deemed university, or a university or institution with approved PhD program. So all the university of national importance, they are there. Maximum age limit is 45 years. You'll get also age relaxation of 5 years for SC, ST, and disabled candidates. The fellowship amount is 31,000 per month, plus you will always get a contingency grant for 25,000 for a year. So 2 years grant is 50,000. Duration is strictly for 2 years, and there is no application period. To check the ICSSR's website. Dr. D.S. Kothari Postdoctoral Fellowship in India. Right? Again, it is funded by UGC in the area of science. Eligibility: one must have PhD degree. Applicant should be the Indian citizen, and host institute any university or research institute in India. Maximum age limit is 35 years, but you'll get age relaxation up to the 3, 5 or 10 years for OBC, SC, ST, women or physically handicapped respectively. Fellowship amount, you can see that 43,400 for the first year, 45,000 for the second year, 46,500 for the third year, and you will also get the contingency grant of 1 lakh per year. So here in science you will require more contingency grant because of the experiment that you want to do. So there is no specific application period. And last is doctorate, graduation in postdoctoral fellowship in humanities and social science. Again, this is funded by UGC. Subject areas are humanities. Eligibility is a PhD degree. An applicant should be the Indian citizen and any host institute or university in India. Maximum age limit is 35 years with the relaxation of SC/ST candidate, and the fellowship amount is, this is basically for 3 years. So the first year 47,000, second year 49,000, and third year 54,000, and every year you will get the 50,000 per annum contingency amount. Then apart from this funding agency in India, there are certain institutes that will also give you postdoctoral directly, like Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta. This is the very oldest institute which is giving postdoctoral fellowship. Then Iit Bombay, second one is Iit Bombay, third one is IIM Raipur, fourth one is IIT Gandhinagar, fifth one is Mehta, the School of Ideas, which is giving postdoctoral in management. Next is IIM Ranchi and IIM Jammu. Then there is one institute, Icssm Bangalore, which is also giving the postdoctoral fellowship. Then another IIM is IIM Amritsar. So these are the different institutes. See, look at here. There are IIM Calcutta, IIM Raipur, IIM Ranchi, IIM Jammu, IIM. These are the IIMs which are actually giving you the opportunity to develop yourself, better researcher and better teacher. So if you are interested, one should always visit. At least you go through the screening part. At least you go there. You'll understand the importance of research. I would like to give some tips and tricks from my experience of postdoctoral. There are certain tips that help me, right? Or there are certain things, there are certain mistakes that I have done that I want that if you are doing a postdoctoral, don't do these mistakes. First thing is any research. Any research, if you are doing a postdoctoral research, it is always expected to come up with some certain novel things. You must create some new knowledge, right? If there are previous theories which are there, try to expand those theories, extend those theories, right? Then if you are having the duplication of studies, you will be always less rejected. Even they will not screen you, they will not call you for the interview, you will be directly rejected, right? So there should be some kind of novelty in your research. Maybe the novelty can be in terms of the different variables that you have added in your study, or maybe you are challenging the previous theory. That has also happened, that you are challenging or you are extending, you are adding more in the previous theory. That is your contribution. Something new should be there. Number 2 is read the guidelines again and again and again. Right? So majority of the time, right, people, they don't read guidelines, right? So they don't know what are the documents that are actually required, right? What is the eligibility criteria? Before applying to postdoctoral, at least read the eligibility criteria. Check your availability, eligibility, whether you are eligible for those things or not. So you have to read the guidelines twice, thrice, and multiple times to be sure before applying. Right? So this is something that read, bring up the guidelines. Right? Many times you feel that I have read it 5 times, still I could not make out these things. Right? So that happened. So read with very calm and composed mind. These are the guidelines. This is very important. Next is how your title should be, how your abstract or executive summary should be. The title should, I already explained, it is short, concise, interesting, right? what your abstract should be. Right? Your abstract, when you're writing your abstract, that should always motivate the experts and readers. When you're writing a snapshot, no executive summary, that should always motivate the experts and readers. Right? If they are not motivated by whatever you're going to do, then they are straight away going to reject you, right? And the next thing is, this is very, very important, it should be free from grammatical errors. There should not be any kind of grammatical errors, because you're already PhD, you have written one thesis, you have written 2 papers out of your PhD, and now this is a very small thing, but it has a huge impact, right? And in your executive summary or abstract, you should always write implication, contribution, originality, value. So what this always motivate the expert or reader to read further, right? So this should always be there. Next is your theoretical background. What should be your theoretical background, right? So it is very, very, very important in your writing, and which theory you have used, why this theory you have used, why you have taken. You should have the rationale and reason for choosing this kind of theory, right? And whether you are extending this theory, and if you are saying that we challenging that theory, the theory was not perfect, whatever basis that previous researchers have taken, that is not perfect, but try to prove wrong, right? Try to extend or prove wrong the previous research. That will be very interesting and that will be very challenging. Yes, I know, right? To saying someone that will challenge the theory, but actually practically do those things, that is quite challenging. But you should always think in those directions, that whether this theory is correct or not. Understand the past research clearly. So before applying to the postdoctoral, right, while you are making the proposal for postdoctoral, or whenever you are going for the postdoc, you should be clear with the previous research, what the previous researchers have done, right? So it should always make the reader and expert clear that how much work that has been done in this field and what more can be done, right? So what more can be done that you are going to emphasize. So yeah, in past study, this thing has already been done, and in future study, this thing should be done. So the gap from past to future is the research gap that you are going to address as a researcher. Next is the methodology. It must be crystal and clear. Majority of the time, the researchers are getting questions from the methodology, right? So you add the sample and procedure, the demographic information, to whom you're going to collect data, right? You have to give some details of the measure for sample item, that is which scale you're going to use, right? So you should be, the first and foremost thing, you should be very clear with the methodology, how you are going to carry out this particular research. What are the different techniques and different tools? How you are going to collect the data collection, right? How you are going to meet the respondent online and offline? How many responded? You have to define everything. And what will be your analytical strategy? Whether you are going to go for SPSS, AMOS, model building, what? The next thing is the data analysis. So data analysis, we have to choose appropriate test, right? Appropriate test in terms of that many a times you can explain something through frequency and chi-square, right? So there is no need to apply the hi-fi test, right? But many times some tests are required, right? So if you are doing a model building, right? The model, whatever you have built, that should always be based on the literature. Without the support of literature, you can never build a model. Next is you have to check the reliability and validity of the data, right? Whatever data you have received, there are 2 things: reliability, and second is validity. Reliability is my data is reliable or not, right? So consistency, it is talking about consistency. When I'm saying validity, it is talking about accuracy. For example, right, there is a weighing machine, and that weighing machine is showing on Monday your weight is 55, Tuesday is 55, Thursday is 55, Friday is 55. So it is consistent, right? But when you go to another weighing machine, when you go to doctor, and doctor will tell you, right? Okay, so you say my weight is 55, I'm doing this last 1 week, my weight is 55. Doctor will say, okay, you can use my weighing machine and do it, and your weight was 58, right? 1 day, 2 day, 3 day weight was 58, right? So I'm not commenting whether your weighing machine was wrong, doctor's machine was wrong, but there is an issue of validity. It was not valid. Then your weighing machine is not valid because not showing the accuracy. Then common method variance test, right? You have to check that if there are all together variables are there, then what is the variance in your data? You have to check that. Measurement model and validity, right? So if you are using the AMOS structural equation modeling, so you have to go check the validity of your measurement and structural model. If in your research, if you are targeting some kind of mediation and moderation test, right? So you have to check it before when you have the raw data, check that whether this is happening or not. Right? So all these things required, but it is based on the research questions and hypothesis. This next thing is the contribution of research. What should be the contribution of research? So you have to compare and contrast with the past studies, right? And then you have to write the theoretical implication. How in theory your research is going to imply. Right? Then there are certain practical and managerial implications of the study. This is also very important. Nowadays, right, the editor of the journal or the expert committee to whom under the guidance of the supervisor, they will always ask you, right, what are the practical implications of your study? You should be able to explain the practical implication. The study should conclude clearly the problem, objective, hypothesis, approval or rejection, methods, and obtained results. Right? So they should be also clear. Right? So you should be able to synthesize everything: problem, objective, hypothesis, rejection or approval, the methods, and the result. This should be in one line, one sync. Right? If your objective is different, hypothesis is different, finding is different, then your research is questionable. Then timely submission and publication. Right? Whatever the stipulated timeline you are given for postdoctoral, you must come up with good publication. You should submit your progress report, your book length report, that is thesis publications on time. Right? If you are targeting very good journals, these journals are always going to take more time for the review, right? So you must have that kind of patience. You plan your journey of 2 years in such a way that if any journal is taking 8 to 10 months, so in the very first year of your postdoctoral, right, you should be ready with your research paper. The relationship with supervisor and institute, right? Before doing anything, right, you keep your supervisor in confidence, because he is the person or she is the person, right, who is the mediator between you and your institution. Right? He can convey or she can convince the upper level, that is the registrar and vice chancellor. Right? So he should have confidence in you. Whatever you're doing, keep that person in the loop for every and any communication. Right? You also maintain some good relationship with employees of affiliating and host institution. You never know. These people are going to offer you job after a postdoctoral. So keep the relationship harmonious and do not break the rules. Rules of the affiliating institution, rules of the funding agency. Don't break the rules, because when you are going to break the rules, then it will be very difficult for you to survive in the institute. Then last but not the least, I would like to give some tips for publication from my experience. It always follow the generalized approach, right? In DOs, always follow the generalized approach. Right? Don't follow the very specific thing. Okay, this is the generalized approach. So generalized approach is what? From the introduction, literature review, then you're having a methodology, data analysis, discussion, findings, implication, and conclusion. This is a very generalized approach, right? Then next is you have to give the roadmap in the last paragraph of introduction. What you're going to do the next. Have your entire research paper or the entire article is actually you've prepared. So give this snapshot of it, right? Next is to explain novelty. What is new thing about your research? Explain that thing. Very important, right? I have not said in the previous thing, plagiarism check. In Postdoctoral also, thesis also, now it is mandatory to check plagiarism. So check those things, right? Then cite the recent research paper of, let's say, for 5 years. You have to cite the recent research papers. Next is many researchers, especially in India, they are facing this problem of English editing. So you'll get the review, and reviewer will say that you do the proofreading, right? Your English was not proper, your English was not clear, the communication was not clear, right? So you have to proofread minimum for 5 times. I would like to advise everyone to read it at least for 5 times to understand, right? Now, next is implement all the points when revision is given. If you are given revision, right, implement all the points in revision, right? And you start the revision by saying that I am very thankful to you for giving me this opportunity to revise my manuscript, right, or revise my thesis. I have implemented all the points in the revision that you have said, and you highlight those in different color, so people will understand. Okay, you have implemented this thing. Then, if you're submitting to journal, my suggestion is you should read editor's research area. The editor is from which area? If the editor is from your area, cite his or her paper in your research paper. Then cite the papers of targeted journal. If you have already targeted some journal, if you're submitting any journal, you must at least have 3 research papers from that journal that you have cited in your manuscript. Then there are certain don'ts that you certain things you should not do, right? So if you are targeting high-end journals, A-star journals, or 3-star, 4-star journals of ABS, right? Don't cite any regional or local channels. They would not accept, they would not appreciate this thing, right? And don't defend yourself if you get a revision. Many people, what they will do? I have done this. This is my thought process. This is my thinking. No, they have given you revision. They have actually given you second chance to submit your paper. Why you would like to lose that particular chance? You should always avoid website citation. That is something that is not appreciated while you're writing the manuscript in high-end journals. Then don't submit to slow journals, because I am getting so many messages from the PhD scholars that, ma'am, can you give us some fast track journals? I have submitted my paper to this journal. This is taking 8 month, 9 month, 10 month time. And many of my friends, they have submitted research paper in the journal, and the journal is taking, I don't know, maybe 1 year, 2 year, 3 year of time, right? So you have to find that whether the journal is a slow journal or fast journal by looking at the publication date. By looking at the submission date of a research paper and revision date and the final publication date. And they have given this on their website. Don't afraid of rejections, because rejection will always make you the better researcher, right? If there are rejections, they have given you certain things in the rejections, certain points in the rejection, work on those points, and then you can go further. Don't include country or state in title, right? So don't include it. Especially this tip is for publication in research journals, right? So they don't appreciate this thing, right? Let us write this thing in the scope. Let us write this thing in the participants profile where they are, right? And don't use too much acronyms. What people will do, they write short forms everywhere, right? But you are expert in your domain. Let's say, for example, psychological contract. Right? If I write PC everywhere, the reader will frustrate. What is PC? Can't I write psychological contract? So don't use too much of acronyms. So these are the do's and don'ts of publication from my end. And thank you so much for being a patient listener. You can find me at anushree@gmail.com. I'll be happy to solve your queries. If you have any questions, you can post these questions on my email ID. I'm not saying it promptly reply, but I will surely reply. Thank you very much. Thank you once again. Thanks so much.